I realized that I no longer wanted to fight individuals. I wanted to fight institutions. I wanted to fight systems. And I also know and understand how it feels to not have a voice. So I want to be that voice that I wish my parents had when I was a little girl.
Meet the woman warrior, Hilda Zamora. From harvesting cherries with her family to becoming a powerhouse personal injury attorney, she's smashing barriers. Her mission? Honoring her parents' struggle by building a legacy that gives a voice to the voiceless.
Their immigration status has no bearing with the rights that they have as a personal injury victims. We see them, we hear them, and we are their voice. You understand that you're the creator and you can change your life, you become unstoppable.
PI attorney Hilda Zamora, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's so interesting when I was looking into your name and I learned about the meaning of the name. And now, after meeting you several times and, seeing what you're all about in terms of your core values and whatnot, and knowing that your name translates to woman warrior was fascinating to me. So when did you discover that you are an actual woman warrior?
Absolutely. I think I discovered I was a warrior way before I became an attorney. Working alongside with my family in the fields, I knew I was meant for more. And we were always the first ones in the fields and we're always the last ones to leave. And at a very young age, I just felt that I was meant for more and I wanted to change the lifestyle that we had. And the fight was within me. I think I just needed to find myself as to what the purpose was. And then later in life, I discovered that it was giving a voice to the voiceless because I felt my parents were voiceless in the fields and had no rights or knowledge about the fields. So I think that's when, at a very young age, I was probably 6 or 7 when I realized that I was a warrior because I was not going to have a situation that I was living with my parents define my future.
And you're talking about the fields. Are these the agricultural fields in Mexico or?
So I was born in Mexico, but we came here to the U.S. at the age of 5 and we work in the fields, picking apples, picking cherries, agricultural fields, everything, seasonal work, whatever my parents were working on that during that season, they will take us and we will work just like they did from sunrise to sunset. Education was not a priority to my family.
And how did you end up getting into law school?
Well, at a very young age, I knew that I wanted to be an advocate for blue collar because I felt we were not seen, we were not heard. And a lot of these times people didn't understand or even knew that they had rights. So I wanted to be the voice of what I defined as the voiceless. And later I learned that what that profession was called was an attorney or a lawyer, right? So I was like, okay, I'll be a lawyer. If that's what I have to do, I'll be a lawyer. And I knew that the only way I could educate myself was through school. I mean, the only way I could educate myself was being able to be excellent in school. So I got several scholarships to be able to go to college. And then from college, I went to law school. And it was just an amazing experience for me.
And law school is no joke. Like usually everybody's scared to go to law school because how much work. What kept you motivated, like to finish law school, pass the bar and do what you need to do?
Well, I have a great story because I didn't do the traditional law school, right? Right after UC Davis, I opened up a bail bonds because I had to work. I needed to generate money. After my bachelor's, I didn't have access to scholarships anymore. So we needed to pay our way. My family couldn't afford to do that. So I knew that I had to pay my way into law school. So I opened up a bail bonds. At the age of 22, I was running a bail bonds business. And I went to a non-accredited law school back then, which is now Irvine University College of Law. And for 4 years, I commuted from Indio to Irvine. And I worked from 5, 6 in the morning to 3 p.m. And then I left Indio. And I drove to Irvine for school from 6 to 10. And I did that for 4 years.
Wow.
So to answer your question as to what kept me going, it was the fire within me to be able to be the advocate for my community and my loved ones and be able to break traditional barriers and generational traumas of not being educated, not having a profession in the family.
You know what's fascinating is that people look at you and look at how successful you are and how strong you are, but they miss the point They miss the grind. They miss this waking up at 3 a.m. and driving 2 hours and doing it over and over for 4 years. And I think that's what sets winners in life. I think this is what makes us different. This is what makes the whole journey worth pursuing. The people in the Coachella Valley right now, a lot of them know you as the family lawyer.
Correct.
You've done that. You've advocated for people. You've fought that fight. Now you are a personal injury attorney. What made you make that shift?
I realized that I was tired of fighting individuals, of fighting families. And I learned that in family law, there's never a winner. And it was all about my ego. It's about me winning. And I realized that I no longer wanted to fight individuals. I wanted to fight institutions. I wanted to fight systems. I wanted accountability. And family law is highly emotional. And I realized that it was really sad how I needed to take one position in a family law divorce. And quite often it was probably not the proper position because it depended who retained me. And I had a duty to that individual, whether he or she was in the right or in the wrong. And I realized that I was so powerful in my profession and the other side would be destroyed by me. And that was not feeding my soul. I didn't want to wake up and destroy another individual. I wanted to wake up and I wanted to confront institutions, systems, and hold them accountable. I didn't want to take advantage of the pain that one individual was going through when a divorce.
And it's go full circle to the field. It's like you're becoming back to that advocate for the underdog, those fighting the system.
Absolutely. As a child, I saw the system. I saw the system fail my parents, right? I saw the system, how they would work my parents to exhaustion from sunrise to sunset. And there was no compensation. And they were taking advantage. And at a very young age, I understood that was wrong. And that was not part of my core values. And that was not right. Well, personal injury, people's pains and people's accidents or pain, it's measured on a spreadsheet. They don't care about their story. They don't care about their pain. They definitely don't care about their families. And that to me, it's personal.
When you're waking up every day and going to court and fighting the fight against insurance companies, what do they don't understand when they're facing you?
They don't understand the caliber of values that I have and how disciplined I am. There's nobody out there that is more disciplined than me. There's nobody out there that has the story that I have, where every single thing that I have, I had to work for it. Nothing was given to me, right? I come from absolutely nothing. I come from very humble beginnings. And I understand that the wolf climbing the mountain is hungrier than the wolf already on top of the mountain. They underestimate me thinking that because I'm a family law practitioner, that I'm not a trial lawyer. Well, they're mistaken. And I love when they make that assumption about me because they're in for a surprise. The evidence code is the same no matter what type of law you practice. And one of the reasons why it made me so successful as a family law practitioner is because I was a trial lawyer. And you don't see that very often in family law. So personal injury, insurance companies think like, oh, she's a family law lawyer. She's not a threat until they talk to me.
And then they get smashed. That's wonderful. And I can totally see people watching us and listening to us today and thinking, damn, I want this person to fight for me because you said it, you're hungrier. And, I can relate to my own story too. Wow. I moved to the US and I'm building a business from the ground up. And it's like a lot of hunger, a lot of dedication, a lot of hard work. So this is what we need to succeed. And when people are, measuring their options out there, this is a great metric to measure on who to hire when it comes to their case.
Right. And I made a decision at a very young age when I realized we were poor, because in Mexico, when I was living in Mexico, I didn't know I was poor because everything around me was the same. So I thought that was just life. When we moved to the US and I saw the difference in class, I knew we were poor. And it was like a sunk feeling, like heart like sunk heart feeling where I was like, oh, we're poor and this hurts. And there's not other children at the ages of 5 and 6 working in the fields like my brothers and I were. So that to me resonated differently. And I made a decision. I made a decision that my present was not going to define my future and that I was not going to die poor. And that decision kept me going through years of like tears, that I was tired, I was insecure, English being a second language, starting school very late, not being consistent because we were migrant workers. We kept on going back and forth. We never really finished an entire complete school year at a time because my parents' priority was work. And I think when you make that decision that you have and you understand that you're the creator and you can change your life, you become unstoppable.
100%. Now, fighting is crucial and very important in law, but also strategy and preparation. Walk us through, how do you handle a case A to Z?
I am highly strategic. And I think it comes to like my upbringings in working in the fields, right? Everything, like you need to count every penny, every cent to make things work. And I think I'm highly strategic. I believe that no one case is the same, no matter what. And what I see with other law firms and other colleagues is that they treat every case as they classify it. It's a soft tissue or not, like a cookie cutter. So I tell them, I define them as a cookie cutter. And I believe that we all have different stories. And to me, it's very important that my staff and myself learn that stories for our clients, because that's the only way I can speak on your behalf and be on your corner if I know your story. I'm highly strategic. By the time I'm speaking to the adjusters, I already know what the weaknesses of their case is. And I also know what the weaknesses of my case is. And I don't ignore the elephant in the room. If I have a weakness, I'm going to turn that into a strength. And that's not going to be a threat to me, or I'm not going to allow them to use that against me because it's a weak in my case.
So true. When companies become large, and it's not like anything personal against them, but when law firms become super large, they need to template things to scale. Mm-hmm. They need to classify, as you mentioned. But you mentioned a very important point, is that every person's pain and reaction to pain is different. Thinking of me and my wife, like when, she reacts to hot water different than I react to hot water.
Right.
And so this is the same thing, but people's their life get impacted differently as well, even with the same, what's supposed to be the injury, the same injury, but it might impact my life completely different than yours. And so when you understand that differentiation, you can go all into fighting and getting them fair compensation.
Correct. Especially for a blue collar person, right? If you're the only one working in your household and you're in pain, it's not just a financial burden that you're bringing into the family. It's your entire livelihood, because now you're upset. Now you're stressed out. Now you're fighting with the wife. Now you're fighting with your kids. So insurance companies don't care and don't realize that. To them, it's a number. To them, it's a file, not in my firm. In my firm, it's a story. And like I said, the attention that we place in every case, it's amazing, because that's the only way I can properly be their voice. If I know their story, if I understand their pain, versus just adding what I believe it's a number as to their pain in a spreadsheet, which is what insurance carriers do.
Yeah. And that's pretty much the second half of your name means. Zamora, I actually dig that deeper, and it's an olive branch, which means sometimes, the show of strength is to reconcile and make compromises. So this is also an interesting observation of your name. Let's talk about dignity. You talk a lot about dignity. Why it's so important to you?
One of the things that I've seen overall in a judicial system is that we treat individuals as a file number or a case number, not as that whole human being, right? For example, in criminal law, we judge them on one act, one time, 4 corners of a complaint, not considering what drove him or her to do that action, what was going on in his mind, and how can we help him or her not be part of the recidivism rate and repeat that offense, right? That's just criminal. In family law, we have really, really good people going through the worst moments of their lives. And we're not there to support them. We're just there to be black and white, cut everything 50-50 and go home, right? This is, I'm going to decide, I've never met your children, but I'm going to decide when you see your children, right? Personal injury is about accountability, right? It's about holding the insurance accountable for injuring our clients. Now, what I think overall, or what all this type of laws have in common, is our system is broken, right? And in all those different type of laws, they don't respect the dignity of our client. And that to me hits home, because when we were working in the fields, we didn't feel like a human being. We felt like a thing, right? Something that didn't have feelings, something where was not entitled to restroom breaks, not entitled to meal breaks. And I think that's why, to me, it's all about PI. Yes, you get compensated financially, but it's not about the financial compensation. It's about fighting for respect and dignity that they deserve, because I do not believe that an insurance company should be able to measure your pain from 1 to 2 or from 1 to 10, right?
Yeah. And insurance companies are, all they care about is their bottom line. This is what, as you said, the spreadsheet. So a lot of your clients are belong to the immigrant community and working class community. And I know that you can help anyone who's injured, right, but why these two communities are so important to you?
Because I feel relatable. I am them. I understand what they go through. I understand how it feels to not be seen. I understand how it feels to not trust the system. And I also know and understand how it feels to not have a voice. So I want to be that voice that I wish my parents had when I was a little girl, and that they never did.
Right. And you're not only an immigrant, but you're also a Latina woman in court fighting, let's face it, white men.
Mm-hmm.
How does that make you different, or how do you feel about this fight?
So to me, it's a sense of pride. I am part of a 2% Latina lawyers in the U.S. And every time I'm against any other attorney, especially Caucasian, white man, to me, it's a sense of pride, because I had every factor not to be the woman and the business owner and the attorney that I am today. But when I made a decision to change that, and now I am side by side as an attorney with them, regardless of what the results are, to me, that's already a win, because I'm just not representing one person at a time, right? It's the entire community. I'm telling our children, I'm telling our great grandparents that it's possible, that we could accomplish it, that we can do it. And if I was able to do it, everybody else could do it.
Absolutely. You're that inspiration to those young Latina girls who are growing up thinking that this is not possible. And you're like showing them, no, it is possible.
Correct. And also breaking generational traumas and limited beliefs with my great-great-grandparents who never went to school, and living the life that they probably could have lived or wish they lived had they had an education. Back then, they either worked or went to school, right? Or they either ate or went to school. School was a luxury back then. Now people take it for granted.
100%. Let's talk about someone who lives in our area, Coachella Valley, Inland Empire. They are injured, they're scared, they're confused, and they probably are undocumented and thinking the system's they have no chances. What can you tell them?
First and foremost, I would tell them not to be scared, right? Everything that we want to accomplish in life, it's outside our comfort zone, and we have to step out of our comfort zone. Their immigration status has no bearing with the rights that they have as a personal injury victims. So despite whatever their immigration status is, there's no relevance, and we can still protect them. But most importantly, I want them to know that in my firm, we see them, we hear them, and we are their voice. And I want them to know that we're going to be there to hold their hand throughout the process, and that in my firm, it's not about money. It's about restoring their dignity and making sure that they feel heard.
That's amazing. I mean, mic drop. I mean, you really, the way, like, the way you articulate, the way you speak, and given that your English is not your first language, is phenomenal.
Thank you. Appreciate
this is
that.
amazing. I'm struggling. I'm also English is a second language for me, and I keep watching my videos. I'm like, when I'm gonna learn English? Like seriously.
But that's what makes it so amazing, right? Because we're different.
100%.
Yeah, that's what makes it so amazing.
Yeah, for sure.
I used to be ashamed of my accent because I used to be bullied about my accent until I realized that my accent brought me pride and it reminded me of where I come from and who I am and definitely where I'm going.
Yeah. There's a consulting firm out of Oregon, and there's a lot of people on the team, and they're all well spoken. But every time they record podcasts here with me, they want me to host it. And I'm like, why? Why me? You have a lot of...
You're amazing. That's what makes you so, that's what makes you so different.
I appreciate that.
We want to be different. We don't want to be the same.
Yeah. And I'm privileged to be able to play a role in the successes of the people. Yeah. And I believe that my moonshot is to give people platform, to people voice. And so speaking of the moon that you liked so much.
I love moon. I love moon. I love sunsets, sunrises. I love it.
Yeah. So we're doing this for legacy and for if you want to have a job, you can go to McDonald's and work and make a living. But what you're doing is a lot of legacy making.
Yeah.
And this comes from a big desire to achieve something huge and great. Right. So we call it the moonshot. So what is your moonshot?
I know. I was like, what is my moonshot? My moonshot, I believe, is creating a 9-figured enterprise where not only am I breaking generations and generations of poverty, but also leaving a legacy behind to be able to prove that we are enough. And it's not about the money. It's about being able to create an enterprise that would outlive me, that will create a legacy for my family and everyone in all my generations. But most importantly, a legacy that's going to be structured with leadership, with work ethic, where people are not a number, where people's stories are heard and people's stories are fought. And I want to go nationwide. And I want this moonshot to outlive me. Again, to show blue collar that it's possible and that even if English is not your second language, the minute you make a decision to accomplish something is totally doable.
100%. Mm-hmm. Woman warrior, Hilda Zamora, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure. Thank you.